Hey warriors, picture yourself old, not as a thought experiment you glance at and move past quickly. Really picture it. Sit with it honestly for a moment. The body's slower than it used to be. The mornings quieter than the decades that came before them. The urgency that drove most of your years finally settled into something more still. The racing has stopped. The proving has stopped. The constant forward momentum that felt so necessary for so long has slowed to something that allows, for the first time in years, a clear view of the whole. And from that stillness, from that particular vantage point that only the full length of a lived life can produce, you look back. Across all of it. Every season you survived, every relationship that shaped you, every morning you woke up and had a choice about what that day was going to be about, and what it was going to cost, and what it was going to build. Every argument that consumed your energy, every worry that kept you awake, every goal you chased, and every version of the future you organized your behavior around. And from that long and honest view, something becomes visible that was always true, but that the noise and the speed and the pressure of the living kept hidden from you. Some things fade, and some things remain. Not everything you worked for, not everything you sacrificed for, not everything that felt so urgent and so necessary and so worth the cost in the middle of the building. Only certain things. And those things, the ones that remain when the fading is complete, are not what most people spent most of their time building toward. They are quieter than that, simpler, less visible during the living, more real in the remembering, the face of someone you loved without reservation, the feeling of having been genuinely kind in a moment when kindness cost you something real, the particular lightness of having released something that was never meant to be held as tightly as you held it. Those things remain. Not the achievements that nobody talks about anymore, not the accumulations that were distributed or discarded or simply became irrelevant. Not the approvals chased from people who themselves have since been forgotten. The three quiet things. And the question at the absolute center of everything this conversation is about is one that I want you to take seriously. Not as a rhetorical question, as a genuine inquiry into the actual direction of your actual life right now. Are you living toward the things that remain, or are you living toward the things that fade? Because the honest answer to that question, looked at without the comfortable justifications that the busy life provides, is the beginning of everything worth changing. Before we begin, type this in the comments and mean every word. I live for what remains. The first thing that remains, how much you loved. There is a version of love that most people practice most of their lives. It is the passive version, the version that exists in the feeling rather than in the doing. The version that says, I love these people without asking the harder question of whether those people can feel that love in the texture of the daily life being shared with them, whether the love is showing up in behavior they can actually experience. Whether the presence being offered to the people who matter is the kind of presence that genuinely nourishes, or merely the kind that occupies the same physical space while the real attention is somewhere else. Most people love the people in their lives. Genuinely. The feeling is real, but the feeling and the practice are two different things. And from the long view, it is not the feeling that remains, it is the practice. The actual showing up, the real presence, the consistent, unglamorous, completely irreplaceable daily choice to be genuinely there for the people who needed you there. Think about the last week of your life, not in general terms, specifically. Think about the people who matter most to you. And ask yourself honestly how much of your genuine, undivided, fully present attention those people received. Not how much time you were in the same room with them. How much of your actual self was available to them? How many conversations went deeper than the surface because you chose depth over the comfort of keeping things light and uncomplicated? How many moments when someone needed to be truly heard were met with real listening rather than the half-listening that is planning its response before the other person has finished speaking? How many times the phone stayed down when it wanted to come up? How many times the distraction was set aside because the person in front of you was more important than whatever was competing for your attention? Most people, when they answer these questions with complete honesty, discover a gap they did not know was there. Or perhaps a gap they knew was there but had not yet looked at directly. A gap between how much they love and how fully that love is actually being expressed in behavior the other person can feel. And that gap is where the regret of the long view is quietly being constructed, not in dramatic failures of love, in the small and daily and accumulated withholding of presence, in the conversations that stayed at the surface when depth was available and needed, in the moments of genuine connection that were possible and were not taken. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you and love the people with whom fate brings you together, and do so with all your heart." With all your heart, not with the portion of your heart that is not currently occupied by something else, not in the hours left over after everything that felt more urgent has been attended to, with all of it. There is something important to understand about why this is so consistently difficult for people who genuinely want to love well. The things that compete with genuine presence are not bad things. They are not villains stealing your attention away from the people who deserve it. They are just other things, important feeling things, urgent feeling things, things that have learned to signal their necessity loudly enough that the quiet need for your genuine presence in the lives of the people you love gets drowned out before it has a chance to register. And the work of loving well is partly the work of learning to hear the quiet signal over the loud ones, of developing the capacity to recognize when the urgent is crowding out the important and making the deliberate choice to reverse that order. Not occasionally, consistently, because the person at the end of their life who wishes they had worked more is someone nobody has ever met. But the person who wishes they had been more present, more open, more willing to go deep, rather than staying comfortable at the surface, that person is almost everyone. And almost everyone had the chance. The chance was in every single ordinary day, in every conversation that could have gone deeper, in every moment of connection that was available if the presence had been offered. The chance does not arrive in dramatic form. It arrives in the ordinary moments that make up the texture of a shared life, and the question is simply whether those moments are being met with genuine presence, or whether they are passing by while your attention is somewhere else. Here is something else worth sitting with honestly. The people in your life are not waiting for the perfect moment to feel loved by you. They are not waiting for the grand gesture or the ideal circumstance or the season when things are less busy and more conducive to the kind of connection they actually need. They are available right now. In this season, with all its imperfection and busyness and complexity, and every day that passes without the genuine presence they deserve is a day that cannot be retrieved, not to produce guilt, to produce urgency of the right kind, the urgency that says there is still time, and the time is now, that the love can be practiced today, that the presence can begin in the next conversation, that the gap between the love felt and the love expressed can be narrowed starting in the next moment you are with someone who matters to you. Because love is not what you feel about people. It is what you do for them. It is the quality of your attention in their presence, the consistency of your showing up, the willingness to be genuinely there rather than merely near. And that love, practiced consistently over the length of a life, becomes the only legacy that truly lasts. Not because it will be written about, because it will live in the people who received it, in how they grew, in how they loved others, in the specific and irreplaceable way they understood their own worth, because someone showed up for them consistently enough that their worth was never seriously in question. That is what love builds when it is practiced rather than only felt. And it is built one present moment at a time, starting with the next one. If you are ready to love more fully starting right now, type this below: I show up for the people who matter. The second thing that remains: how kind you were. The world is very good at forgetting success. This is not cynicism. This is the simple and consistent observation of everyone who has ever lived long enough to watch the things that seemed permanent become impermanent. The career that felt so central to your identity becomes a few lines in a biography nobody reads. The reputation that took decades to build becomes a footnote to people who never lived through the building of it. The achievements that produce genuine pride in the accumulating produce genuine nostalgia, at best in the remembering. All of it fades. But ask someone about the person who was unexpectedly kind to them 20 years ago, and they will tell you the story in detail, the exact moment, the specific words, the particular quality of the attention that communicated, without any elaborate performance, that they were seen, that they mattered, that the person in front of them had chosen in that moment to offer something real rather than to look past them the way most people do. Kindness does not fade from the people who receive it. This is not sentiment. This is the simple truth about how human memory actually works. We do not remember most of the competent and efficient and professionally impressive behavior of the people in our lives. We remember the moments of genuine warmth, the times we were struggling and someone noticed, the times we felt invisible and someone saw us, the times the world felt indifferent and one person chose not to be. Those moments become permanent features of how we understand what is possible between human beings. And the person who extended them becomes permanent in our understanding of what goodness actually looks like in practice. Seneca wrote, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. Wherever there is a human being, not just the ones you know well, not just the ones who can offer something in return, not just the ones who are easy to be kind to because the relationship is comfortable and the kindness costs nothing. Every human being, every interaction, every ordinary moment of daily life that contains another person who is carrying something you cannot see and managing something you may never know about, and hoping, in whatever quiet way people hope for these things, that someone will treat them with a little more warmth than the day has offered so far." Here is what makes genuine kindness difficult, not the kindness itself. The attention required to practice it. Because kindness, real kindness, requires that you actually see the person in front of you, not the function they serve, not the role they play in the transaction you are engaged in, the actual person. And seeing actual people requires a quality of presence that is genuinely rare in a world full of people who are mostly looking at their phones or thinking about what comes next, or managing their own concerns so thoroughly that the human beings in their immediate vicinity become background rather than foreground. The person who develops the capacity to actually see the people they encounter, to be present enough to notice the struggle beneath the surface and generous enough to respond to it, is practicing one of the most quietly powerful disciplines available, and the effects of that practice are impossible to fully trace. Because kindness multiplies, the person who receives it and feels the particular shift that genuine human warmth produces carries something forward from that moment. They treat someone else differently because of it. They extend something real to another person in a moment of need because they know what it feels like to receive it, and they want to pass it on. And the trail of that original moment of kindness runs forward through the world in ways that the person who extended it will never see and cannot possibly imagine. That is the legacy kindness builds, not visible, not traceable, not the kind of thing that produces recognition or reward, but real, more real in the end than most of the things that produced the recognition and the reward. The practical implication of this is not complicated. Every day contains dozens of opportunities, some of them obvious. Someone who is clearly struggling, someone who is visibly in need of acknowledgement, someone whose situation is evident enough that responding to it requires only the willingness to respond, and some of them subtle. The person who is fine on the surface but less fine underneath. The one who will not ask for anything because asking feels like too much to ask. The one who has learned to manage without and has become so good at it that nobody notices the managing anymore. Seeing those people, responding to the less visible need with the same genuine warmth offered to the obvious one. That is where the character that kindness builds is actually built, not in the easy cases. In the ones that require real attention to recognize and real generosity to respond to. And the person who practices this consistently, who makes the daily choice to see and respond to the human beings they encounter with genuine warmth, becomes someone different over time. Someone whose presence is felt in rooms as a particular quality of safety. Someone people move toward rather than away from. Someone whose death, when it comes, is mourned not for what they achieved, but for how they made people feel. That is the life kindness builds, and it is built one small moment of genuine human warmth at a time. If you are ready to practice kindness as a daily discipline, write this below. I choose kindness every chance I get. The third thing that remains, how gracefully you let go. Most of the suffering in a human life does not come from what is actually happening. It comes from the resistance to what is happening, from the grip maintained on things that have already changed, from the demand that circumstances be different than they are before peace is allowed to exist, from the carrying forward of weights that belong to seasons that ended years ago. We hold on. This is the most human thing there is. We hold on to people who have already left in every way that actually matters. We hold on to versions of ourselves built for circumstances that no longer exist. We hold on to wounds that were real when they were inflicted and that have since become homes we return to so consistently they feel like part of us. We hold on to the specific version of the future we decided we required, the particular form the life was supposed to take, the exact shape of the arrival that would finally allow us to feel that things were going well. And the grip we maintain on all of these things costs us the present moment continuously, not once, every single day. Because every day that energy is directed toward holding something that has ended or changed or revealed itself as something that cannot give what was needed from it is a day that energy is not available for the life that is actually happening. Epictetus said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." The rest as it happens. Not as you required it to happen before you would consent to peace, not as you planned it would happen back when you understood less than you do now. As it actually happens, with all the imperfection and the uncertainty and the genuine indifference to your preferences that life has always contained and will always contain. Letting go is misunderstood in a way that makes it harder than it needs to be. People think letting go means the thing did not matter. That releasing a grief is the same as denying it. That releasing a wound is the same as pretending it was not real. That releasing the expectation of how someone should have treated you is the same as agreeing that how they treated you was acceptable. None of those things are true. Letting go means something much simpler and much more practical. It means recognizing that your continued grip on something that has already ended is not changing the thing. It is only changing you. It is keeping you in a relationship with a past moment rather than with the present one. It is costing you the energy and the attention and the genuine aliveness that the actual present life requires. And releasing that grip is not a betrayal of what was lost or what was done or what was hoped for. It is the decision to stop paying the ongoing cost of maintaining a connection to something that cannot pay you back. The things most worth releasing tend to fall into recognizable categories. The first is other people's versions of who you should be, the identity constructed from someone else's expectations. the version of yourself built to satisfy a need that was never yours to satisfy in the first place. The shape you have been contorting yourself into to fit a mold that was designed for someone else's comfort rather than for your genuine flourishing. That shape is not you. It never was. And carrying it as though it defines what is possible for you is one of the most limiting things a person can do with their one irreplaceable life. The second is the specific future you decided you required, the version of how your life was supposed to look by now, the timeline, the form, the particular arrival that was going to confirm that everything had worked out the way it was supposed to. That version was designed before you understood enough to know what you actually needed, and holding it too tightly prevents you from recognizing what is actually available, which is often something better than what was planned, but only visible to the person whose hands are open enough to receive it. The third is the weight of who you used to be, the person you were in the seasons that have passed, the mistakes made when you knew less and had less and were working with whatever resources that earlier and less experienced version of yourself had access to. That person was doing their best with what they had. In the circumstances they were navigating, they deserve understanding and compassion and the particular grace of being recognized as someone who was trying, rather than as a collection of failures to be carried forward forever. Honor that person, and then release the obligation to carry their weight into every subsequent season, because the person you are becoming right now needs the space that the person you were is currently occupying. And the becoming, always and without exception, is more important than the having been. The practical truth about letting go is this. It is not a single event. It is a practice, a daily returning to the recognition that the grip has tightened again, and the deliberate choice to loosen it, not once, every time it tightens, which will be often. Because the tendency to hold on is deeply human and deeply ingrained, and will not be resolved by a single moment of insight, however genuine that moment is. It requires the ongoing practice of noticing the grip and choosing to open the hands, again and again and again, until the opening becomes more natural than the holding, until peace becomes the default rather than the exception. That is what graceful letting go actually looks like from the inside. Not a dramatic release, a daily, quiet, genuinely courageous practice of choosing the present over the past, of choosing what is available over what was lost, of choosing the open hand over the tight fist, over and over and over, for as long as it takes to become second nature. The truth most people miss. Why we get this so consistently wrong. Understanding these three things is not the same as living them, and most people do understand them, at least partially, at least in the moments when the long view becomes briefly visible, when something happens that strips away the ordinary noise of the daily life and allows the quieter and more permanent truths to be felt. A loss, a near miss, a conversation that went unexpectedly deep. A moment of unexpected stillness in which the actual shape of the life becomes clear, and the question of whether it is oriented toward what remains or toward what fades becomes briefly unavoidable. In those moments, most people feel the truth of these three things completely. They feel the importance of love practiced rather than only felt. They feel the quiet power of kindness extended without expectation. They feel the weight of what they have been holding that was asking to be released. And then the moment passes, the ordinary noise returns, the urgency reasserts itself. The momentum of the life already in motion carries everything forward, and the brief clarity fades back into the background, where it waits for the next moment of stillness to bring it forward again. This is the central challenge, not understanding the three things, living them consistently when the world is doing everything in its considerable power to direct attention elsewhere, toward the accumulation of what fades, toward the performance of success that the world measures but the long view dismisses, toward the busyness that feels like meaning but produces In the honest accounting of the long view, very little of what actually lasts. The inversion that most people live, clinging to what should be released and releasing what should be protected, is not stupidity. It is the predictable result of living inside a set of pressures and incentives that consistently point in the wrong direction. And breaking that inversion requires something that runs against the current. It requires the daily, deliberate, sometimes genuinely difficult choice to orient toward what remains rather than toward what the world is applauding right now. To give the love when giving it requires something. To extend the kindness when extending it costs something. To open the hands when holding on feels more familiar and more safe. Those choices will not be celebrated by most of the world most of the time. They are quiet choices. They produce quiet results. Results that are invisible in the short term and only visible from the long view. But the long view is coming. For everyone. And what is visible from it is the only thing that will have mattered. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane." The insanity he was describing is exactly this, the spending of the one irreplaceable life on things that do not survive the long view. The escape from that insanity is exactly what these three things offer, not a complicated path, a daily practice, love expressed in presence. Kindness extended in the ordinary moments, hands opened around what needs to be released. Every day, as many moments as the day offers. That is the whole practice. And the life it builds, over months and over years, and over the full length of a life genuinely oriented toward what remains, is the life that will be worth looking back on. Not because it was impressive, because it was real, because the love was given, and the kindness was practiced, and the grip was loosened enough that peace had room to exist. That is the life worth living, and it is available right now, in the next moment, with the people you already have, in the ordinary circumstances of the ordinary day that is currently happening, now. If you are ready to stop living the opposite way, write this below. I live toward what remains, starting today. When the world is finally quiet and the long view backward has arrived, three things will still be standing. How much you loved, the actual showing up, the genuine presence in the lives of the people who needed you there, not occasionally, consistently, not when it was easy, also when it was hard, how kind you were. The quiet moments of genuine human warmth extended without expectation toward people who needed to be seen. The 1,000 small kindnesses you will not remember because they felt too ordinary to commit to memory, but that the people who received them will carry forward for the rest of their lives. And how gracefully you learned to let go. Of what was not meant to be held. Of the expectations that were never yours. Of the old weights that were consuming the energy the actual present life required. Three things. Quiet things. Things that leave no official record and produce no trophy and cannot be measured in any currency the world currently recognizes as valuable. And yet the only things that are fully and completely and permanently real when everything else has faded into the nothing it always was. Do not wait until the end to understand this. You have understood it right now. Use the understanding. Let it change how you speak to the person you love today. Let it change how you treat the person who needs to be seen in the very next interaction you have. Let it change your relationship with the thing you have been holding that has been asking for a long time now to be released. The long view is available to you right now. You do not have to wait for the end to see what the end will show you. You can see it now, and living toward it now while the living is still entirely yours to choose is the only response to that seeing that actually means anything. Live it now. I live for what remains, every single day.